What is up, everybody? Welcome to Sales Stories in Real Life. I am your host, Alex Bruschi, and this is the show where professional salespeople share their stories on times that they themselves were sold. We've got a very special guest in the building. We overcame an 8-hour time difference to make this recording happen. Reporting to you live from the UK, we have got the speaker and storytelling consultant, the founder of Ravi Rajani Consulting. Ravi, welcome to the show. You and I have been connected for quite a while. I'm so happy we were able to make this work. You are a video legend. I hear you have a pretty interesting story on how you got into storytelling. What happened there, bro?
Well, dude, firstly, happy birthday, man. I'm not going to make you tell everybody how old you are. You look beautiful. You look young. Keep looking beautiful. Keep looking young. Keep doing your thing, man. But happy birthday, bro. But where did it all start, man? I suppose I got to take it back to when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And my mum Miyagi'd me, man. My mum Miyagi'd me. And what I mean by that, for those of you that are listening and wondering what on earth is he talking about, Daniel's son, when Mr. Miyagi was teaching him karate, he was secretly making him do all of these things other than karate, but it was actually training him for being a black belt in karate. And I think that's what my mum did, right? She threw me into the same dance school as my little sister when I was 8 years old, and I was fuming, man. I was so angry because I was the only dude in my entire school in dance, and I was scared that this secret was going to get out. And by the way, it did, but that's another story. And eventually my mom did let me quit a couple of years later, and I stumbled into theater as a teen. So growing up, everyone was always saying, yo, Rav, are you going to take this whole speaking, presenting, or acting thing seriously? Because we think you're pretty good at it, man. So my mum clearly had done a good job of getting me into the world of being on stages really early on. But in my head, Alex, I was like, no. Like, are you kidding me? I want to make some money, man. I'd watched the movie Wall Street one too many times because just like Gordon Gekko, I was like, greed is good. I can't remember what the phrase is, but I was in my head at that time. I was like, you know what? I want to do one thing and one thing only. I want to work in the world of investment banking. I want to work on the trading floor, but I want to start my career in the world of corporate sales. That was it. It's all I wanted to do. So that's exactly what I did, man. I did the whole business school thing, and I ended up on the trading floor at Citibank, where I began my career as a corporate sales trader. So what I was doing was ultimately helping multinational corporates hedge their foreign exchange risk. So selling them foreign exchange solutions. But I don't know if you've ever felt this way, man. Over time, I was like, man, this was meant to feel different. Like I had everything that I wanted on paper, but the reality, I was like, man, this doesn't feel like my dream. I thought it was on paper, but in reality, I felt like I was living somebody else's dream. So in August 2016, I pressed eject, and that's when I entered the world of selling and leading in the world of early stage startups. I dabbled in the world of TV, radio, consulting, coaching, speaking, all that good stuff. And over time, I realized these three things, Alex. I realized, number one, why do sales presentations all look and feel the same? Why is there no storytelling whatsoever in any of them? And why is it illegal to showcase who you truly are? It was like you couldn't really be who you were because it was deemed unprofessional, whatever that means. So in September 2020, I started my business in the middle of the pandemic. And over time, the mission has evolved. But the fact that I help sellers ultimately build trust and captivate their prospects in a way that ditches feature selling so they can sell more through storytelling, it means everything to me, man. So that is the mission. That is what I'm focused on. And hey, that's why we're here today, dude.
I love it, man. Let me just first and foremost start by saying I've been in sales for a while now. This is all I've ever done. And I just learned on the spot that you had a theater background, which makes sense because you're absolutely electric on camera. Your intonations, your everything is just spot on. So that makes a lot of sense. And the point that I'm making is that I've seen a lot of people with theater background have a lot of success in sales. So let's just kind of start from the beginning there. And then I have a lot of questions that I want to ask you on sales presentations. What was it about theater in particular, right, that got you ready? Because not many people have a theater background. But as I mentioned, for those who do, they seem to find success in sales.
I don't know if it was one specific thing. I think it was many things. But one of the things that stands out massively to me was the ability to articulate a message under pressure. So you've got hundreds of people watching you, right? You've practiced for months, right? Your script. And I remember in one specific play, I had about 50 pages, right, worth of lines to learn, rehearse, read. And the beautiful thing was twofold. Number one, I had to ensure that I didn't sound scripted, right? Some salespeople hate scripts, but for me, I'm huge on scripts because that's how I was trained and grew up. So for me, going into acting, zero acting experience, suddenly being thrusted onto the stage to having to learn scripts, make them my own, and then communicate them under pressure. Realistically, that's what most sellers go through. Right. They didn't do a degree in sales because from what I know, I haven't seen any degrees in sales. They're thrusted into this world with little to no training, and they have to ultimately learn scripts, communicate a story and solution under pressure. And they've got to make sure that they're providing people with a unique and memorable and unforgettable experience. And that is the buying experience.
That's so well said. Every single guest that we've had has mentioned how important the buying experience is to them. So I love that we get to hit on that theme every single episode because it's so critical. So let's dive into how not to give a good buying experience, right? One of the big messages that you are always beating the drum about, very successfully, I may add, is that all sales presentations look the same, right? Sales presentations are boring. Like you said, there's no personality in them. So let's look at both sides of it. We'll do the good and the bad, but let's start with the bad, right? Like, how can you, as a seller, right, if I'm making a presentation, how can I objectively look at my presenting skills and realize, hey, you know what, I'm sounding like everyone else, right? Like, what are some of the bad habits that you notice as far as the presentations that do all sound the same before they start working with you, let's say?
Yeah, I think some of the things to think about is this is fascinating. So I once had a rep who had to, during a training of mine, they had to share a story under pressure, and it had to be no more than 60 seconds. And I wasn't going to interrupt them. So what happened was I let the stopwatch go, and 60 seconds through, they're still not done. Minute and a half, still not done. 2 minutes, still not done. It goes to, from what I remember, it must have been around 2.5 to 3 minutes, the story. And then I said, how long do you think that was? And the rep said, I know it was slightly longer than 60 seconds, but not too much, right? So the self-awareness was really off in this case. And he's a lovely guy. I'm not going to mention names or company, but lovely, lovely dude. And I think the first thing it boils down to is talk time and really having a self-awareness of how we communicate, what we communicate, and how punchy we really are. Because I believe the following 3 steps has to hold. Now, I believe the first thing you have to think about is getting somebody's attention. Okay. So in this moment, Alex, if you are thinking about your emails, your next podcast guest, or what you got to do after this, that's a Ravi problem, meaning I have to compete against all the other things that are fighting for your attention in this given moment. That's a me problem. I need to grab it. Okay. But then once I've got it, I need to learn how to keep it. Okay. I need to learn how to keep it throughout an entire presentation. So it will lead me to the third outcome, which is earning the opportunity to be your Yoda, to be your Miyagi, right? To ultimately take you from pain to glory and solve your problem. Now, if you look at those 3 things, really, it all begins with getting somebody's attention, and talking too much, over talking. And maybe I'm doing that right now. I'll let you decide. But if I'm talking too much, right? Or if I'm really being very, very focused on me versus with them, coined by Zig Ziglar, what's in it for me? If I'm not really thinking about How is this message relevant to the person I'm communicating with? And how does it provide them with an incredible experience that makes me memorable? And how does it support them in solving their problem? It doesn't really do anything except stroke our ego, or I suppose it can feel like a checklist, like a box ticking exercise. And I remember when I was selling in the world of early stage startups, there were times where I didn't get through a whole demo. And I was like, damn it, I didn't get through the whole demo. I needed to show this, that, or the other. And it's like, hold up. Sorry, who said that you have to show every single feature? You should show what features are relevant and that ultimately are important to solving your client's problem. Who cares if you didn't get through your entire mission statement and the case study of XYZ? You know what I mean? Like, think about what's relevant. And I think it all boils down to self-awareness, time, experience, and all that good stuff. What do you think, man? What do you think? What do you think the bad things are about sales presentations in your eyes?
Man, never had anyone turn a question back on me. And it's tough because you just hit the nail on the head. I love those 3 steps that you put out so much. So I'm going to reiterate them. And I love how, number one, you taken the ownership. I feel like so many people these days are like, oh, well, the person was distracted and they weren't interested and they were this and they were that. But you're saying, no, it's up to me to grab your attention, right? It's my responsibility. So number one, you got to grab that person's attention. Number two, you got to keep that person's attention, right? And number three, you've got to be relevant. Those are some really, really, really ironclad steps there, because going back to your example, when you told the rep, hey, you got to make a pitch in 60 seconds, that might even be a little bit long for some prospects, right? Some prospects, you got to get to the point, you got to get to the point fast, and every additional word that you're saying, their attention is just slipping and slipping and slipping away. So let's tie that into some of the good stuff, right? Like after reps work with you, right? And after they have the storytelling acumen, and when their presentations don't sound like everyone else's, right? What does that sound like? What are they doing differently?
I think there's a few things, and firstly, I think there's tons of things that reps are doing good today, right? It's about highlighting what they are so you can double down them, and then revisiting the final point of that rep sharing a story, which is too long, really. Once again, it boils down to the self-awareness to understand that and just know that it's all on you, man, as you said, right? Like it's all on you to really get people's attention, keep it, and then earn the opportunity to solve their problem. But when it comes to the good, I think, a lot of the work that I do with teams and the transformation that they get is several things in terms of tangible outcomes. And we can talk about that in a second in terms of actual KPIs. But one of the things is they don't use PowerPoint as a crutch. They don't use it as a crutch. It's something that is the nice to have inside of a human to human conversation. And they're using it as something which is bolstering their thought leadership, opinion, and also message versus, oh no, the PowerPoint slide is messed up. I don't know what to say now. I don't know what to say now, because it's governing them, right? Versus the opposite. So, lesser reliance on slides, right? And if there are slides, it's not filled with tons of text. It might just be one picture. It might be 7 words, right? It might be something, it could be a video, something which elicits a specific emotion, which continues the conversation, right? So the first thing is less of a reliance on PowerPoint and slides, which creates a lack of death by PowerPoint. The second thing as well is really starting a conversation and a presentation with intentionality. So look, let me give you an example, okay? This is how a classic presentation will look. It could have the front of a slide deck. It will say market trends for 2023 by Alex Bruski and Ravi Rajani, right? And our company name and the logos at the bottom. Now, here's the problem, right? That title is doing nothing for anybody, okay? It's doing nothing for anybody. So think about switching it to the 3 secret market trends which are costing fintechs in the USA $98,500 today. Okay, all of a sudden it's like, oh, intrigue. So the goal is constantly to create effective pattern interrupts. So people are like, oh, this is different. This is unpredictable, this presentation. This is unique. I need to pay attention. Okay, and then we move through giving people promises. So like, what are the 3 things that they're going to get if they give you their attention? Okay, look, by the end of this, man, you're going to get these 3 things, right? If you stay with me, okay, you're going to get these 3 specific things, 3 hooks, right? Tell them what it is. And then you're going to illuminate the villain. right? You're going to illuminate the villain. Think about it. January 1984, Steve Jobs came out on stage and he released the Macintosh, but he didn't come out and just enter with the solution. He illuminated the villain. He highlighted it before he presented the solution. And the villain at that time in that narrative was IBM. Right? Then we move through to presenting the solution. And it doesn't need to be all the shiny features, a 1 hour long demo. It's what relevant. And it's something that highlights your unique method, your company's unique way to solve a client's problem, because nobody can compete with your company's story and your story, and nobody can compete with your unique method, your vehicle to take your clients from pain to glory. And then what we would do really is pepper with inside of that customer success stories, which are relevant, not case studies. There's a difference, and we can talk about that, but customer success stories, right? And then what we're really moving to in that moment is an effective call to action, right? An effective call to action. And then really thinking about a closing story, something which loops back to the original story that maybe you share at the beginning of your presentation. And I should have included that, a short personal story at the beginning of your presentation to really open up people's hearts and minds and spark an emotion, and then closing with a similar story at the end, which once again maybe is more logically focused but is unpredictable, because most people would end with a CTA. So I'm going to pause for breath there, but that's an example sequence of how to craft an impactful presentation.
I'm like learning on the spot right now. I'm totally mind blown over here. I love it. And you started alluding down to a path which I think is not only incredibly relevant, but also not talked about enough. So why don't you tell us about the difference between a customer success story and a case study? That's a great thread to pull on there.
Well, think about it like this, man. Have you ever been to a shopping mall and somebody comes up to you and they say, "Hello, sir, would you like a bite of a cookie?" And you're like, "I don't know, man. I got the parking, the parking meter's running. I need to kind of get out of here, but all right, fine." And you have a bite and you're like, "Where's the rest of the cookies at?" Where's them damn cookies, man? So you go into the store, right? And you ask about the ingredients. You ask about the pricing. You ask if it's gluten-free. You ask if there's a sale. You ask how many boxes they've got. Think about it. The sample sparked a specific emotion which pulled you in to understand the features. So it's not that people bash features. There's a time and place, right? But to pull people in, the story is the cookie sample. The brochure, once they go in the store with a lot of the meat and the features and the depth, that is the case study. Now, there are 5 key ingredients which go into crafting a compelling customer success story or a story. Happy to go into that, but those are the real differences for me. One is full of emotion, is short, and is pulling people in to earn the opportunity to share an in-depth case study versus leading with it.
Love that. I mean, when you think, I love the cookie example too. And especially if you're listening and not watching, Ravi's body language, your intonations when you stop and you whisper sometimes, I'm just like getting more and more and more drawn in. So you are like an absolute consummate professional, my man. But why don't you continue on that path that you were saying earlier, as far as, which direction, one would want to go for something like this when you are presenting that customer success story, or dare I say that case study?
Yeah, is in the key ingredients for sharing one.
Yep.
Yeah. So look, there's a famous quote by a dude called Ralph Emerson, and he said that the creation of 1,000 forests is in one acorn. And if I actually think about it, for me, I actually believe that the creation of 1,000 relationships is in one story, right? If you think about the stories that I share, the story at the beginning, that personal story, I've shared it on so many different podcasts in the same way, and it's got the opportunity to have a ripple effect. But the question is in a sales process, okay, what are the key ingredients for crafting a compelling sales story? Because this isn't Michelle in American Pie. This one time at band camp, right? We're not doing that. These are about stories which inspire your prospect to take action. You know what I'm saying? So here's the 5 key ingredients, okay? And it's the ACORN checklist, okay? If you wondered where I was going with that with Ralph Emerson, it's the ACORN checklist. So it's an acronym. A stands for attention grabbing, okay? Inside of a presentation, the worst thing you can do is, how about we go around the table and we all introduce ourselves? Hi, my name's Susie. I'm the SVP of sales at so-and-so. How about you? Oh my. No one cares, man. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, let's be short, let's be sharp, but let's be attention grabbing with a story, right? Let's be attention grabbing. We need a hook, anywhere between 3 to 8 seconds, ideally shorter, which really pulls people in. So think about it like this. The moment somebody says, hello, my name is Ravi. I'm the founder of Ravi Rajani Consulting. And what we do is you start thinking, I know exactly how the rest of this story or presentation is going to go. And you switch off because I've taught you to switch off. All right. So it needs to be attention grabbing. C is contain a relatable main character. What I mean by that is if you look at a customer success story, many reps will say, we helped Microsoft. Nobody can see themselves in Microsoft because people buy from people, but they can see themselves in Alex Bruschke, who's the SVP of sales at Microsoft, who lives in LA with his dog and his girlfriend, right? People can then see themselves in Alex. So don't forget to insert a relatable human being that has a similar DNA to the prospect that you're trying to connect with. Okay. Yep. O stands for organically unfold within a simple story arc, meaning your story should organically unfold within a simple story arc. Now, I used to have this friend called Rich, and every time I see Rich, Alex, he'd be the guy who just tell me a story which had a beginning, an end, a middle, and then he'd go back to the beginning, and then he'd have another end, and then there's a new story which pops up. I'm like, bro, thanks for wasting 20 minutes of my life, man. Like, honestly, it was awful. Such a lovely dude, though. But the truth is you got to think about your story in a way which it should unfold within a sequence of events. So I like to think about it as context, conflict, turning point, transformation. Context, conflict, turning point, transformation. 4 key elements, all right? And then we talk about R in that acorn checklist, which is reveal a villain. And here's the way I like to think about it. The higher the tension, the higher the attention your story will demand, right? So if you think about every Disney movie you love, right? Like my daughter's 14, 15 weeks old now, but I can't wait till she gets to the stage where she's like, I want to watch a Disney movie, because all I remember is that all the villains like Jafar and Scar and how much I hated them because they were creating obstacles for the main character, right? To go from pain to glory. So the question is what is the $1 million problem? What is the underlying root cause of your prospect's pain? That is the villain. And then N is nurture trust, right? Your story should nurture trust, meaning I couldn't meet you for the first time, right? And say, hey, my name's Ravi. Would you like to book a discovery call? You'd be like, whoa, slow down, right? So nurturing trust is really about thinking about the buying experience and ultimately not your sales process, right? Simply, if you just think about your sales process, you're going to try and think about what serves you, but you need to align that with creating an incredible buying experience. So it could be simply asking a high impact question as a call to action in your story, which elicits a response, which promotes a human to human conversation. And all of a sudden you're building rapport. So that's the acorn checklist for crafting a compelling sales story.
Bro, we're going to have to chop that up into a small clip. That was absolutely incredible. Not only does the acorn relate to building a forest, but it's also an incredibly relevant acronym. I love it. I mean, I'm on the edge of my seat here. I hope all the listeners at home are in the same position. Let's cater to them here as we wrap up, because unfortunately we are running out of time. For the B2B sellers that are listening, right, and they want to get better at their job, they want to get better at presenting, they want to get better at grabbing people's attention, what would you feed to them, right, as a real big takeaway that they could take home from this?
I think, look, there's several stories that you can share inside of the sales process, and it can be overwhelming. You know, I teach a host for companies to craft and also sellers themselves. But one of the stories that I think reps can always begin with is an impactful elevator story. So if somebody asks you at a networking event, so what do you do? Classic thing is so we're doing this thing, like it's crazy, man. So it's like it's SaaS, right? Because you know SaaS is blowing up. So it's SaaS, and it's like this commission tool. And if you think about it, like it's like commission, you know. And the other person's like, yeah, I'm gonna go get a drink. So what you really got to think about it is how can you share your message, which really should describe who you are, the problem you solve, and the why behind it in a short, punchy, and impactful way. So it sparks interest, right? Into ultimately you as a human, but also your company and their solution. So I think really focusing on getting a tight 40, 45 second, less than a minute, really, elevator story is powerful, because you're going to get asked that question a lot. What do you do?
Incredible. Incredible. I learned so much. I know that everybody listening learned a lot. Like I said, man, can't say enough great things. You absolutely smashed it. I know that you're obviously working on a lot and you're a new dad. So congratulations for that, of course. Why don't you plug something with the audience here on the way out? I know that you were chatting some KPIs earlier of how you've helped folks. Maybe you want to share some of your KPIs, some of what you're working on. Let's hear it, Ravi.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, I don't want to bore the audience with any case studies today. I won't bore the audience with the case study today. But one of the things that I will share is back in March earlier this year, one of the things I did was I spoke at Crunchbase's SKO. And one of the things we worked on with them was how to craft a really tight elevator story that ultimately earns you the opportunity to solve a client's problem and really land that meeting. So what I'd love to do with everybody here is share an example script or template on how to craft your own elevator story, and hopefully it can support you. So if you head on down to www.theravirajani.com/your elevator story. There's a free download there for your script, and you can check it out. Tell me what you think. It's all about how to craft and deliver a high impact elevator story.
You heard it here first, folks. www.theravirajani.com/your elevator pitch.
Your elevator story.
/your elevator story. Go check it out. Ravi is incredible. Shout out to Crunchbase for having you out at their SKO. I would be ecstatic if you were at my SKO. I'm sure you had everyone just absolutely jiving with all the energy, all the great takeaways. Man, can't say enough great things about how much I enjoyed this episode talking with you. Thank you so much for making some time here today. Again, it was a big time difference that we made happen. So I'm so happy we were able to make this work. Ravi, thank you again. Sales Stories in Real Life, fam. We will see you next week. Take care.